There are tax audits. And then there's the kind of tax audit that can actually land you in prison. Yeah, we're talking about the IRS Eggshell audit. This is not your typical run-of-the-mill review. It is a super high-stakes situation where just one wrong move could have consequences that change your life forever. Getting an IRS Eggshell audit notice can feel like finding a ticking bomb in your mailbox. Our source material really hits the nail on the head with that one. It's the perfect metaphor. So think of this explainer as your guide to diffusing that bomb, how to cut the right wires so you can walk away safely. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to define exactly what this threat is. Then we'll get into the subtle warning signs that your audit is getting more serious. After that, we'll arm you with your rights and defenses, lay out some winning strategies, and finally, we'll look at the two very, very different ways this whole thing can end. Let's dive in. All right, Section 1, the eggshell audit threat. What is it that makes that term eggshell so fitting, and why is this kind of audit so much more dangerous than a standard one?
Well, the name really says it all. You're literally walking on eggshells. See, it starts out looking like a normal civil audit, but here's the catch. The agent on the other side of the table suspects fraud. So the entire goal for the taxpayer is to keep those fragile shells from cracking, because if they do, a full-blown criminal case is waiting underneath.
Just look at the difference in intensity here. A standard audit, that's about verification. An eggshell audit is a full-blown investigation. The focus completely shifts from, hey, did you make a mistake, to did you intentionally commit fraud? And the tools they use get way more invasive. We're talking net worth analysis to see if your lifestyle actually matches the income you've reported.
So what triggers this kind of scrutiny? Well, it's often actions the IRS calls badges of fraud. Some are pretty obvious, like keeping two sets of books. But others are things like large undocumented cash deals, or, like we just said, a lifestyle that just doesn't add up. That's when they start asking questions like, so, where'd the money for that new boat come from?
Which, of course, leads to the next huge question. How do you know if a standard audit is secretly escalating? The IRS isn't going to send you a nice little letter announcing it, but they do leave a trail of clues if you know what to look for.
Okay, a massive red flag is when the agent you're dealing with just goes radio silent. Your audit gets put on hold for no clear reason. That's usually not a good sign. It often means your file is being passed up the chain for a criminal review. Another big tell is when the agent's questions shift from what to why. They're not just checking numbers anymore, they're digging into your intent.
The kind of documents they ask for can also tell a story. All of a sudden, copies aren't good enough, now they want originals. That suggests they're preserving evidence for a potential court case. And when they start issuing subpoenas or asking for records from years way outside the original audit scope, yeah, you know the investigation is getting a whole lot wider. But this is the clearest sign of all. An agent from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, the CI Division, shows up. And yes, they carry a badge and a gun. The second that happens, it's no longer about taxes you might owe. It's now a federal criminal investigation, and the game has completely changed.
Now, as scary as that sounds, you are not powerless. The Constitution actually provides a pretty powerful shield. So let's talk about the fundamental rights you have to defend yourself.
First off, the IRS can't just go on some vague fishing expedition. You have a right to know exactly why they picked your return for an audit. And this is so important because it forces them to define the scope of their investigation, which lets you and your lawyer prepare really focused defense. This might be the single most important right you have. You do not have to speak to the IRS yourself. You have an absolute right to have an attorney handle every single bit of communication for you. And finally, of course, you have the protection of the Fifth Amendment. You cannot be forced to answer questions that could incriminate you. And it's really critical to remember this. In a criminal court, using that right, your right to remain silent, cannot be used against you as proof of guilt. So knowing your rights is step one, but step two is having a strategy to actually use them effectively. So how do you navigate this whole process to make sure you get the best possible outcome? Your communication strategy is pretty simple, but it is absolutely crucial. Number one, be accurate. Don't speculate. Lying can get you perjury charges. Two, don't overshare. Only answer the specific question that was asked and provide only what was requested, nothing more. And three, be concise. Short, direct answers prevent them from misinterpreting what you're saying. But all of this really points to one single, non-negotiable strategy. Hire an experienced criminal tax defense lawyer and do it immediately. They are your shield. They manage all the communication, and they stop you from making that one accidental misstatement that could turn a big civil problem into a life-destroying criminal catastrophe.
And finally, we get to the end of the line. The outcomes. After all the investigation, all the strategic moves, an eggshell audit can only end in one of two very, very different ways.
This right here is the fork in the road. Path 1 is a civil resolution. It's going to be expensive, you'll pay what you owe plus interest and penalties, but you walk away with no criminal record. Path 2 is a criminal referral, and that means felony charges, massive fines, potential prison time, and a criminal record that will follow you for the rest of your life. The stakes couldn't be higher.
Let's just put a number on that criminal path, okay? For just a single conviction of tax evasion, the fines for one person can hit $100,000. And that's before they even start talking about prison.
And on top of that massive financial hit comes the loss of your freedom. For that same single count of tax evasion, up to 5 years in federal prison. That is the devastating outcome this whole process is designed to help you avoid.
And so we end right back where we started, with that ticking bomb. The core message of this entire explainer really comes down to this one simple question. When your finances, your reputation, and your freedom are all on the line, would you really try to defuse that bomb yourself, or would you call the bomb squad?